Hey guys, and welcome back to Amygdala's Bane. So this episode is going to be about mental health resources in Pakistan. So we'll be covering the major cities. We'll be talking about resources in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, Quetta, and Peshawar. So I just want to begin though with 3 websites that I found. Basically, for these websites, we'll be providing the links below in the YouTube thingy. No, we won't. We will.
Okay.
Yes, we will. Okay. Yes, we will. Kazi has agreed to put it in the bio.
Okay.
So they're called, there's therapy routes, there's marham, and there's taskeen. So for all 3 of these, basically how it works is that they have filters for your location, and they have filters for like for example, marham has marham and taskeen have filters for what service you need. So like, for example, inpatient, psychologist, psychiatrist, rehab, learning difficulties, online services have a separate category. So they were really helpful. They provide a list of psychologists and psychiatrists near you, and they give the information for their contacts as well as their fees per session, which typically range from what I found was rupees 500 to 4,000. And they also give the credentials. So when you go on these websites, I would advise to look at the credentials first and only go to the most qualified person. And also don't go for someone who is too expensive, but also don't go for someone whose range is really low, because typically a better psychologist will charge between 2,000 to 2,500 rupees per session.
So the deal with Islamabad is there are a lot of resources. They're just mostly catered for rich people. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah,
they're just mostly catered for rich people. They aren't catered for, they're like catered for like people who live in Islamabad. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't live there, they're not catered for you. Mm-hmm. They're pretty expensive as well. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of time as well. And then they're specialized to talk to those people as well, and specialized in speaking about very niche rich people problems as well. So that's one thing in Islamabad you need to be wary of. And then in Islamabad you have a couple of places just for psychological help. You have Therapy Works, of course. Therapy Works has a lot of psychologists, and they work with drug rehabilitation too. And the psychologists over there, they charge around 2,500, and then you can check the credentials of each psychologist that you are going to individually, and then you can set up sessions with them on a weekly basis for whatever issue that you are facing. And then in Islamabad you have different institutions that cater to what your specific need may be. So you have the Autism Resource Center in Islamabad, which caters to people who are on the autism spectrum. And then you have other types of institutions in Islamabad, which I know but are on my notes, so I have to open them.
We did do our research. We did.
Okay, then you have the Meeting Matters Clinic, which is another psychologist clinic in Islamabad, and their website's really nice. So look at the website. They have a couple of counselors who are working there, who charge around 2,500 rupees per 50-minute session. So you have different psychologists who specialize in different things. So check what they specialize in that's written on the website, and then contact them or contact the institution based on what you need and if you think that they're a right fit for you.
Also, Meeting Matters, on their website there is an option, 2 phone numbers are given, one for psychologists, one for psychiatrists, if you want to contact them for free over WhatsApp for just a initial consultation kind of thing. So even if you're not in Islamabad, you could utilize that resource.
And then there's Soch Psychological Clinics, which has also a very nice website, and this is located in Bharia, I think. And they also have very qualified psychologists who you can look up what their credentials are, and they also have a price range of around 2,500. So you can check what is relevant for you, and then hold a meeting. We also have the National Institute of Psychology in Islamabad. This isn't for counseling or psychological help or evaluation. This is a research center. So if you want any kind of information about any kind of psychological disorder, you can go here. If you think that there's a problem with the mental health policy in Pakistan, you can go there, check what their policies are, and be 100% aware of what's actually going on, and see the people who are in charge over there. And then, of course, when you are talking about mental health institutions, I'll talk about the slightly more niche things that I consider mental health institutions. You have the Binte Fatma Foundation, which is an old age home and a women's shelter. So people who are suffering from domestic abuse or sexual violence, they can visit this center and avail their resources and try to gain protection from whatever they're going through. This place I've been to personally. They have very good resources. They keep the women in extremely good conditions. They're very well kept, and they're also very well funded. Similarly, that's mostly an old age home as well, but they do also cater to women who are suffering from domestic abuse or who need to escape their home life and do not have anywhere else to go. You also have the Hamara Ghar orphanage in D12. So it's just an orphanage. If a child is going through physical abuse, or someone can't take care of them, or a child is alone on the street, they can apply to come here. Unfortunately, this is an all girls institution. So if a male child is suffering through something like that, or they need protection, or they have nowhere to go, there's also the Sweet Homes Foundation, which is a very, very, very popular foundation. It's a huge facility with very, very good processes and very, very well funded. The problem with Sweet Homes is, though, that it's slightly harder to get in, and it's a much longer process of trying to get a child into Sweet Homes because of it's just a lot of processing time that you'll have to go through if you want to be able to go there. Then we have the major hospitals in Islamabad. So you have Ali Medical, Maroof International, you have Shifa, Kulsum International. All of these places have psychiatric wards. So if you're looking for medicine, or looking for a way to, or the improvement of your mental health is attached to medicine, then you can go to these places. Or if your psychologist advises you to get medicine from a doctor, then you can go to these places. Almost every single major hospital in Islamabad will have a psychiatric ward. Psychiatric wards aren't usually for therapy, though, so you need to be wary of that. You need to know, you need to tell them. I would advise to go to a psychologist first, find out what the issues are, and then tell them. I wouldn't go to specifics with a psychiatrist. Also, because I feel like because they're trained to be doctors, they're not trained to be mental health. They're not trained to be mental health counselors. They're trained to give medicine and to be able to decipher what is wrong in a physical sense, not a metaphysical mental sense. So you need to be wary of that. Some people do go to psychiatrists for psychological counseling. I would advise against it. I would advise going to a psychologist first and then going to a psychiatrist based on what the psychologist says to you, if your psychologist is qualified enough to give you a recommendation, because some psychologists will give you a recommendation that you should go to XYZ place.
And then for Karachi, we have the Karwane Hayat, I think that's how it's pronounced, which is a non-for-profit welfare organization, and they offer both outpatient and inpatient services. And I checked their reviews, and they seem to be like really well reputed. It seems to be a really popular place, and they even have community outreach programs. So they set up psychiatric medical camps in remote areas where medical help or any kind of mental health related services are really restricted. And I'm not 100% sure about their fees, but according to the statistics, about 93% of their patients were treated free of cost. So I think that if you do your research, then according to your financial situation, they will adjust your fees. Then you have the Pakistan Institute of Living and Learning. pill. It's also like really, really, really renowned, and they've set up suicide prevention center. They have suicide prevention services in their centers that are all across the country in the major cities. So they have it in Karachi, Lahore, Rawalpindi, Peshawar, Quetta, Hyderabad, Nawab Shah, and Multan. They also have ongoing projects like the South Asia Self-Harm and Suicide Reduction Movement. So they've been doing a lot of work, especially in the suicide area. And if you go to their website and you check out their health and well-being clinic, there's a list of their services, and they've even given like a list of the psychometric assessments that they use to diagnose, and also the various illnesses that they treat, which include depression, and there's also therapy for children with learning disabilities, and for the parents of those children there's trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which we've talked about in previous episodes, which have the main aim of just it's therapy with the aim of challenging the irrational thoughts that an individual has based on their experiences in life. Then there was also a place called Psychiatric Solution, and their price range was pretty cheap. It was like from 500 to 2,000, and they have online consultation, but the reviews were pretty mixed, so I would advise you guys to be cautious of this place, because in one of the reviews, an individual mentioned that they use ECT, which is electric shock therapy, which can be pretty harmful and damaging to your mental health. So, and the owner did respond with like a very casual, we don't use ECT, without any further comments. But yeah, do your research before going there. Then there was also the Recovery House. The Caravan of Life Trust is the full name, and on their website they have something pretty helpful, which is they have like a chat room. So if you send them a message on their website, they will most likely reply within the hour for any queries that you might have, and that's free of cost, of course. However, the problem with that place is that they only treat individuals who are 18 years or older, and it's mostly inpatient facilities. So if you're over 18 and you're looking for a place to go because of your mental health problems, then that would be a pretty good place to check out. And their services are split into therapy techniques and units. So therapy techniques would be with the main aim of just improving your mental health through like CBT or family therapy or RABT. And the units are like therapies for specific skills. So like for someone who has autism, they could take the units of like social skills and stuff like that, basically, for a specific skill that you might need to reintegrate yourself with. Then there's also Willing Ways, which has centers in Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi, and they offer rehab, counseling, psychiatric services, and emergency mental health services. They focus mainly on addiction treatment, but they do have the services and the skilled personnel. They all have like masters in psychology and applied psychology, and they're all qualified to help with other mental health problems. Finally, there is Consult a Psychologist in Karachi, where you have a panel of very qualified professionals, and they have and you can check their credentials, and some of them have a sliding scale pay, which usually ranges from 1,500 to 3,000 rupees. And they all have different timings, so that if one isn't available at the time of your convenience, you can try someone else. And they have a separate service for self-management, which is just emphasis on self-care. So that was a really good place that you should check out. Also, I would like to just say that, we live in Islamabad, so we only know of the places in Islamabad really, like some of the places in Islamabad really well for mental health services, because Qazi has visited like the orphanage and the old age home, but we haven't visited the rest of these places that we're recommending. We've done our research and we've tried to pick out the ones that seemed the most legit and the most helpful, but just basically we're giving you some options, and you should do your research in depth and proper if you want to get the right help.
Yeah, do your research before you go as well. Like if you decided on a place to go, do your research before you go. Like even if we're telling you that this place is good, and even if it's in Islamabad, still do your research before you're going. Yeah. That should be for everything, no matter who's telling you where to go. You should do your research and then decide if you want to go or not. Yeah. In Lahore, you have similar kinds of resources. Okay, so in Lahore, we have 3 different autism centers. We have the Autism Care Center, we have Roots and Wings Autism Center, and we have the Autism Resource Center, Lahore. All of these places are similar to the Autism Resource Center in Islamabad, and then you can go to their websites or call them to be able to get more information on what they provide. Of course, if you have a child with autism, it's imperative that you do as much research as possible, and that if your child has been diagnosed with autism, you go through these links, or if you feel like you have an undiagnosed case of autism, that you go to these places and be able to talk to them. Or if you are someone who has a friend or loved one who has autism, then these places could maybe help you understand how to interact with them in proper ways, and help you interact with them in ways that are appropriate for someone who is suffering with a behavioral disorder. Then you of course have Therapy Works in Lahore. Therapy Works is the same institution that runs in Islamabad and Karachi. Therapy Works will offer psychologists, and they offer mental health counselors who will help you with whatever issues you are going through. And then of course their price range are similar to 2500 again, like in Islamabad. Then you have the Punjab Institute of Mental Health. This is the largest institute for mental health in South Asia, and it is also the oldest institute for mental health in all of South Asia as well. It is almost 200 years old actually, and then it got more modernized in 1900 in Lahore to be able to serve that purpose. This place is actually more of an asylum. So if you need permanent medical intervention based on what your mental health issue is, you go to PMIH, because they are a mental asylum. That's what they identify themselves as when you search it up. You also have Bridge Rehab in Lahore, which is a psychiatric ward again, and then you can talk to them about what kind of medicine you need and what kind of resources are available over there. And then for women's shelters in Lahore that will deal with women who go through sexual abuse or domestic abuse, or have been kicked out of their homes or something similar. You have the Bilkis Eati home. You have Karvan Craft Foundation. You have UNICEF who might be able to help you, and who might be able to help you through. UNICEF might be able to help you with an asylum seeker process if it is serious enough for you to consider something like asylum seeking, or you to consider a refugee process. And then you have the Dastak Welfare Foundation, which again works similarly in terms of women's abuse and women's issues. And then for orphanages in Lahore, you have SOS Children's Village, of course. Similarly, you have SOS Children's Village in Islamabad as well, and in Karachi, and in every major city you will find a SOS village, which is an orphanage, of course. Then of course you have Darul Shafaqat, which is also a big orphanage in Lahore, which caters to these issues. And then you have Mera Ghar Orphanage, which is similar to the one I talked about in Islamabad. So they're going to cater with people with children who are suffering from child abuse, or who need a place to go and do not have any other resources to go to.
For Peshawar, there were less resources that I could find, but the resources that I did find were mainly psychiatric. So there's the Bashir Psychiatric Clinic, run by Dr. Bashir Ahmed, and he's a very renowned psychiatrist in Peshawar, and he's UK certified, and he charges around, I think his fee is around 1500 rupees, but you might want to recheck that, because one website said 1500, but I'm not 100% sure. And there was also there's a place called the Cure Door Resource Center, which also provides mental health services. I couldn't figure out their website. I will put the link in the bio, but if you guys figure out the website and do your research, then they also had really good reviews, and they provide all the services like psychotherapy. They also have sensory integration therapy and all that. Then there's the Department of Psychiatry at the MTI Lady Reading Hospital in Peshawar. And they have a board of 3 full-time psychiatrists and 2 full-time psychologists. And they provide services for anxiety disorders, depression, panic disorders, phobias, and bipolar disorders. It's listed on their website, so you can check that out. And other than that, in Peshawar, you can just check out, like Qazi said, the main hospitals in Peshawar will have a psychiatric ward, where you can go for consultation. So there's the Shafiq Psychiatric Clinic, there's Peshawar General Hospital, again, Lady Reading Hospital, MTI, and all these. So you can check these out. And, as Qazi said, you all live a little bit away from Islamabad, so just come to Islamabad if you can't find the resources that you need in Peshawar. Then there's Quetta. So in Quetta, there was the Balochistan Institute of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, and their psychology department does offer like clinical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, and all that. And they also have a clinical social work department. So they have a board of very qualified professionals, and they can be consulted for any mental health problem. There's also the Wellness Rehabilitation Clinic for Children, which focuses mainly on behavioral therapy and sensory reintegration, occupational therapy. There's remedial therapy for children with learning difficulties, and they are currently, because of the pandemic situation, they are giving free online training for child development during the pandemic. And you can also consult Professor Dr. Ghulam Rasool, who is the executive director of this place. And he works in Akram Hospital in Quetta, and he charges 1,000 rupees for consultation, and 1,200 rupees for online consultation. So he can also be checked out. And again, if these places do not have the resources you need, you can go to a psychiatric ward in a hospital if your problem is medicine related. And those are all the resources I could find in Peshawar and Quetta. They were relatively less.
With any kind of psychological institution in Pakistan, you need to be slightly wary based on what your issue is. I'm not going to go further into what kind of issues I'm talking about, but we live in a very conservative country, and most of the people in this country are very conservative.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into the specifics of what that means. I'm assuming you already know what the specifics of that means. So based on what your issue is and based on what you're suffering, going to a mental health institution in Pakistan may not be the best option for you, just generally, even if you're living in Islamabad. I know a lot of people who have had bad experiences and who've brought up issues that weren't accepted or weren't treated properly. So be cautious, and if you are going to someone, try to be sure that they are okay. So if you are suffering from an issue that is sensitive in our country or isn't something that's very widely accepted in our country, I would be wary of where you're going or what you're telling a psychologist, especially because there are lots of things in Pakistan that aren't illegal or aren't and that aren't banned or anything, so they can do a lot to you. So I would not talk about some things. You wouldn't want to be placed in a situation where you're sent to a asylum to get it quote unquote fixed or something. So be very, very careful whenever you're telling someone anything that could put you in those kind of situations. And then similarly in the West, they've gone through this period of things being banned and things not working anymore. But even if you search up like electrotherapy in Pakistan, you can easily find like 20 places in Islamabad that'll do it. So you have to be aware that these are problems that are very prevalent in Pakistan. You need to be careful about who you speak to, because that person might or might not have the authority to not only arrest you for some things that we might think are normal, but they might try and fix you, quote unquote. So you need to be very careful about who you're talking to and what you're talking about.
In Pakistan, we have certain cultural, spiritual beliefs and practices that might influence the way people here deal with mental health problems. And the intention isn't always bad, but sometimes it will impair someone's ability to move past a problem, or the less helpful solution will be provided. So, I mean, we have, like, for example, if you're suffering from maybe schizophrenia or something and you have hallucinations, it might be mistaken for something that would require an exorcism rather than, you know, being taken to the doctor, I mean, like the psychiatrist, and being given the proper medication to deal with that. So, like Kazi said, we have to be wary because there isn't enough awareness about this stuff in our country yet. The awareness is growing, but it's not to the point where it's still at the point where we still need to be cautious about the problems that we talk about and who we talk to them about. And there's also like, you know, people who will say that parents included, who will tell their kids that if you just say your namaz, then you'll be fine, or if you say this dua, then you'll be fine. And of course, that does help. It's been proven that prayers do help, and saying something over and over again helps you calm down and helps you process your emotions. And even when you're doing namaz and you're like praying, you are letting out your emotions in a way, even if it is to a higher being. And yes, this stuff does help, but it might not be the only solution to your problems. There is medication for a reason. There are psychologists and psychiatrists for a reason. These are professionals that can help you more. You can pray, but that does not affect your ability to go seek help otherwise. If you're sick, you will most likely pray for your sickness to go away, but you will also go to a doctor to consult to see what the problem is. So the same logic should be applied to mental health. And yes, it's difficult because of the stigma and everything that is in our society, but the effort has to be made so that we can continue to slowly move past it. Okay, that's all we have for this episode. I hope this helped you guys. I hope you guys do your research for any problem that you might have and you find the solution you need. Be careful, do your research, and make sure you know where you're going and who you're talking to, basically.
Yeah, and also if you have the privilege of being able to go abroad for uni or something, I would advise seeking counseling abroad if that is a possibility for you and that is something that you see in your foreseeable future, and if the issue isn't prevalent enough that it needs to be dealt with right now.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest.
Yeah. And there are also international
hotlines
that you can refer to. If you have the minutes, you can. They do accept international calls, so you can also check those out, like the suicide prevention hotline and everything. If you can't find the services you need here, there are certain services abroad that do take international calls that you should check out.
Again, same word of caution with suicide hotlines in Pakistan. Suicide is, I mean, illegal here.
Yeah.
It's illegal and heavily penalized. So families are penalized sometimes too. And then of course the shame and then of course there's cultural shame associated with suicide as well. So be cautious.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So take care of yourselves, and then we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye.